Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. Big news out of the NBA as it turns out. Pelicans forward Zion Williamson will be sidelined indefinitely after fracturing his left ring finger. Williamson averaging a career-high 27 points and just over 7 rebounds per game in his second NBA season. New Orleans currently in 11th place in the West, 2.5 games behind the Spurs for the final spot in the Western Conference play-in tournament. The Pelicans 1-4 in 5 games without Zion this season. Here is the playoff picture in the Western Conference. Pelicans on the outside looking in. The remaining schedule not an easy one either. They play 5 of their last 6 games on the road starting tonight against Eastern Conference leaders Philly. They face Memphis, Dallas, and Golden State, all teams fighting for postseason spots before finishing against the Lakers at home. And for more on this, let's now welcome in part of our NBA Brain Trust here on CBS Sports HQ, NBA writer Bill Reiter and the coach Avery Johnson. Coach, I'll come to you first with this. What does this injury mean for the Pelicans and their playoff hopes?
Well, it really hurts their playoff hopes in the worst way, especially they're embarking on, a 5-game road trip, playing against some tough teams. They've already, split in their last 2 games with Golden State, who looks like they're going to be safely in. The Pelicans were going to be battling the San Antonio Spurs for that last spot. So it's going to be an uphill battle. You losing a guy that's capable of getting, 30 points and 10 rebounds in the rest of the games this year, and especially if he's making his outside jump shot. So I think this is a situation where the Pelicans are going to really have to lean on Ingram and, Lonzo Ball, who's been hot and cold, and obviously Eric Bledsoe, Jackson Hayes, second-year player, may have to play a little bit more, maybe even play 2 bigs on the floor with he and Adams. James Johnson may have to, have more of an increased role, but you just can't replace Zion Williamson. There's no other player in the league like him. So this doesn't bode well for the New Orleans Pelicans in their playoff chances of the play-in tournament.
And, Coach, you mentioned Brandon Ingram. Bill, Brandon Ingram out indefinitely as well with an ankle problem. So it gets worse for the Pelicans here. I mean, what's your reaction now? 2 big players out of the lineup for the Pelicans.
Yeah, my reaction is Chicken Little was right. At least in New Orleans, the sky is falling. We're talking about going from what was a long shot. I don't want to say no shot, because I suppose you never know in sports, but it feels like no shot. Those we know are the 2 guys offensively who carry the weight of the scoring for this team. And just watching, and anyone who's watched the Pelicans this year can see this, and certainly sources and folks around the NBA have talked about just the swagger and the confidence that entire team plays with when Zion's been there in his short career versus when he hasn't been there. When Zion's on the floor, that's nearly a 500 team. When he's not around because of injury, they're well below a 500 team. And you guys mentioned the schedule, not just these road games. Every single team they're going to play for the remainder of this season is a team that's a postseason team currently today, if you include those play-in slots. So whether it's the Lakers at the end of the year, another game against the Warriors, Philly tonight, to varying degrees, tough teams who are all playing for something, right? Fighting for something at the end of this season with this new format. This was already a daunting road for the Pelicans when both Zion and Ingram were there. With both guys out, man, that's about as difficult a road as you can craft for the final few games of a season.
Yeah, the news about Ingram just coming down as well. So, Coach, you had mentioned the fact that Ingram would be one of the guys who would need to step up. That just came down, that Ingram is out as well. So I'll reframe it to you again here. You'd mentioned Lonzo Ball. I mean, he's coming off 33 points against the Golden State Warriors. So when you look at now other guys that are going to have to step up, as a coach, you talk about opportunities. What kind of opportunities are there here for the Pelicans?
Well, for a guy like Lonzo Ball, yes, you alluded to the game that he played well against Golden State. But the first game, the day before, I think he started off that game 1 for 11. And just the lack of consistency. This is a really combustible team. I agree with my buddy Bill, especially when Zion is not in the lineup, and especially when other guys are not playing consistent. I think one of the things they might have to think about is going deep down the bench and maybe giving a little bit more time to Kyra Lewis. He's a rookie. He's had his moments this year. May have to play a little bit small. You may have to play Lewis and Ball and Bledsoe all on the floor together and just try to get creative, especially now since not only Williamson, but Ingram's not going to be in the lineup.
So, Bill, now you're looking at this team and a season that was approached with hope, and now as you mentioned, they've got 6 very tough games to finish the season against teams that are fighting for playoff spots. So when you look at this now, if you're a Pelicans fan, how disappointing is it?
I mean, guys, if we're being candid, and I know the West is crowded and it's been a difficult year, and I like David Griffin a lot, their GM, but I think it was already disappointing. The expectations for this Pelicans team, if Zion were to play the majority of the season, was that they were going to be competitive to be a postseason team if you include those extra couple of slots of the play-in. And that already looked like it might be something that eluded them. It certainly looks that way now. And the big reason that they're not going to be the team they should have been is the same reason they're probably, guys, not going to be able to win enough games down the stretch. They're just not very good defensively. I don't want to pretend the Lakers are necessarily going to thrive without LeBron James, however long he's out, and Anthony Davis with his injuries. We'll see how that goes tonight. But that is the Lakers team that is one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and we certainly saw against the Denver Nuggets a few nights ago. They can play pretty well without LeBron when the defense works. The Pelicans don't play great defense. They're very good offensively, but they're not good offensively without Zion. They're not good offensively without Brandon Ingram. So you have a team that's been disappointing defensively, that had high expectations, and it's not like both these guys are missing the entire season. I think there's some real questions in New Orleans about this team, about the roster construction, and as much as I like Stan about the coaching, because there were expectations, I think there are expectations around the NBA that they were going to be better than they've been. And this is the last thing you want when you're on the margins, and that's really bad luck.
Yeah, 6 games below 500 as they take on the Sixers tonight as they begin that road trip. Coach, Zion Williamson, I mean, injured again. You talk about there's an injury history here with Zion, so I want to gauge what's your level of concern with Zion having another injury and out of the lineup?
No, I'm not really overly concerned. You know, he's still a pretty young guy. You look at what's happening with the Dallas Mavericks and how Porzingis is consistently in and out of the lineup. I would probably have a little bit more concern with him. But Zion, second year, he's the type of kid that can probably string together a couple of seasons potentially where he'll be able to play in, 100% of the games. But I just think this is a freak accident. When you got a fractured ring finger, those things don't happen every day. I would be more concerned if it's consistently a knee injury, consistently ankle injuries, consistently hamstrings and quads. But, freak accidents like a ring finger fracture, that doesn't happen consistently. So I just think they got to get him mentally ready to play on both ends of the floor. I agree with Bill. I don't know why I'm agreeing with Bill so much on a Friday. Maybe I'm just happy Friday, but they have to get better defensively. There's 2 sides of the floor. It's not just Zion dunks and, Lonzo Ball alley-oop passes and lob passes. You have to be able to compete on the defensive floor if you want to change the trajectory of your team. Just ask the New York Knicks and what Tom Thibodeau's done with their team.
Yeah, as mentioned, I mean, a ring finger, that's a freak thing. You can't really do much about it. Before we let you guys go, Coach, I'll ask you this. If you're Stan Van Gundy, how do you have to change what you're doing now on the court in order to remain competitive and try to get into the play-in spot with these 2 big guys out of your lineup?
Well, the Pelicans have problems shooting the ball, so they're not going to reinvent the wheel and become a prolific 3-point shooting team. They may have to play a little bit slower because Zion, obviously, in transition, he's a guy that you can pass ahead to and they can play fast, tempo, but maybe just play a little bit slower, slow the tempo down a little bit, because the faster they play, that's the more they're on defense. And with the defense that they've shown this year, they're not going to be good enough when they're playing a high percentage of possessions on the defensive end. So maybe try to control the tempo a little bit.